The Miraj of Virginity test. Virginity test has been designed without any success, throughout history and in different cultures. We all know how Lord Rama tested by fire the chastity of his beloved consort Sita, held captive by Ravana. It happened to the most dedicated and pure person, if ever there was one. Even after this test, she was exiled to a forest on malicious and drunken comment by a citizen of Ram Raj. Perhaps, Lord Rama was personally convinced of the purity of his consort Sita. But, he took this decision to confirm to public opinion, even if it is a malicious rumor. In medieval Europe, when the knights went out on a militant campaign, they used to lock up their wife with a chastity belt, the key of which was only with the knight. No such insurance of male fidelity has been ever in practice, then or now. Though paternity can be fixed by DNA test, the purity and virginity of faithfulness still remains elusive and indeterminate. Even hymen test woman is not conclusive about her premarital virginity. It is trust and love remains only the dependable factor. This story is a modern story, where the husbands like knights have to go on long voyage on ships, as a member of merchant or national navy. They have to leave a newly wedded wife for long periods and they're concerned unsurprisingly with the chastity and faithfulness of their wives, though they themselves can't maintain any proof of their own marital faithfulness, in or out of belt. Vithal, an engineer in merchant navy, was particularly possessive and jealous husband of a beautiful wife who had to be left for months, sometimes a year on shore as he was out on his duty in merchant navy. He had been married only 1 year back and he missed his wife's presence in the spells of his long and lonely voyage. And, of course, she also missed him as much without any sense of jealousy, that he might have a brief affair on port. Thus, in a luxurious flat with all amenities and generous pocket money, she lived her life in Bombay alone. She was missing her husband with whom she couldn't have much conjugal company even when he came on shore, due to her pregnancy, delivery, and upbringing of the young child. This situation was painful for both husband and wife. Senior engineers and navigators were enjoyed a cabin in which they could take their spouses on voyage, but juniors could not afford such luxury. But the payment was good and many bright and well-qualified youngsters chose this profession. Their wives try to compensate for absence of their husbands by extravagant shopping, parties, kiddie club, costly cars, luxurious flat and other such entertainment with their friends, woman and even man. But many of the husbands did harbor a suspicion about their wives' exclusive fidelity when they were on voyage. The situation was comparable to some extent with the knights in medieval Europe who went on long militant campaigns who leave their wife alone. And then, they devised the system of chastity belt. One such incident which his friend narrated is interesting. His friend Ramesh had a very puritanical wife, very religious, and she had to cleanse and purify herself by bath more than once in a day, especially after love-making. Once Ramesh left for joining his voyage and had to go to the port by aeroplane, but was forced to return home as he missed his flight. When he came home, it was close to midnight and he had to wait for a few minutes before his wife opened the door in her bathing gown. He was surprised by her untimely bath. He concluded hastily that his wife might be in bed with someone else. After a bit of fight, his wife claimed that a lizard had fallen on her body necessitating her late-night bath. But Ramesh didn't believe till she hunted out the comatose lizard which had fallen on her, polluting her purity. Only then, Ramesh was assured of his wife's chastity. There were similar stories of possessive and jealous husbands who left there alone, while on voyage. Once during a booze session in club which was a stag, with only his friends, there was discussion about the problem of chastity of their wives and how to devise some sort of a chastity belt which could assure their wives' fidelity, while they were away on long shipping assignment. They could hopefully persuade their wife to wear their chastity device which was foolproof. One of his friend Avinash, who was not a ship, was an IT expert working on digital device for security with a digital code, password and ID to access. This code and password was known only to the user and owner of the system. In this case, it was a wife who could be equipped with such digital lock. They persuaded this friend to develop this security device for the chastity of their wives while they were away. This brilliant digital engineer agreed to work on this device with some sophistication of remote operation, invisibility to the intruder, etc. After the device was ready for use, Vithal and some of his friend gifted this device to their spouse on her birthday or wedding anniversary. Most of the wives accepted the device happily. If they didn't accept, they would come under suspicion that they didn't want their infidelity to be exposed, and no woman would like to give such impression to their husbands. Thus, most of the wife accepted this gift, which was a costly one, and promised to use it, with the code known to their husband, not even the user wife or the digital lock maker. This secrecy of the code will assure husband of his wife's purity. However, a hitch soon happened in case of a friend who forgot the long and elaborate alphanumeric password. It was impossible for him to unlock the lock and make love to his when he came back from the shore. This problem arose in some other cases also. Finally, they had to request their lockmaker friends to hack the code so that they could use it. He was able to hack the code and help his friends. But this required a lot of a physical intimacy between the friend's wife and the digital expert, but this had to be tolerated. Avinash's wife was herself a computer engineer, and in absence of Ramesh, she hacked the code herself. Being Puritan, she didn't have any extramarital lover but had to share this hacking technique with some of her close friends who wanted to decode the device for their own infidel purpose. In some cases, the wives were young and sex-starved. They had to cool their sexuality by an occasional infidelity in bed with a male friend. And, they were not happy with their husbands for putting this device on their body. They felt insulted and mistrusted. They wanted to prove that their husband's suspicion was correct. It was a twisted vengeance. Thus the hacking technique was secretly circulated among many wives with the support of original creator, digital expert, Avinash. It was suspected by some husbands that Avinash might be decoding and cracking the code for his own benefit at the request of the wives. Thus this digital lock business to retain marital chastity ran into some confusion, digital or otherwise. Mahesh, however, proved to be more intelligent than others. He constructed a secret code running into several lines which made it impossible to be hacked by someone who didn't know it. Thus he was assured of his wife's marital fidelity. But some trouble arose soon. As he couldn't himself remember the long and complex alphanumeric code, he jotted it down in a secret small diary which was accessible only by him. Once in a port, while he was having a one-night stand with an exotic call girl, he found that his pocket was picked. Perhaps, the call girl was a part-time pickpocket. Mahesh was in real trouble as he couldn't access his own wife in bed. This was a serious problem for both. He confessed to his wife that the diary in which he had noted the longest code that was pickpocketed while moving in a street in a port where his ship had docked for some times, more than a lock, it was deadlock. His wife confessed that she had received a call from a call girl whom Mahesh had visited, and she was ready to return the diary at a price. Infidelity of Mahesh was exposed and he apologized to his wife, yet he had to recover the diary, which he did after the payment asked by the call girl. Thus on shore, after a couple of years, they had a brief honeymoon with his wife after unlocking it. But the aftermath of the situation was, his wife insisted that you have to wear the similar lock or the digital indicator which will expose your lapse into extramarital affair, if any. This point of view was endorsed by the members of the Shipwives Association. A project was launched to make such digital indicator which will convey through internet in an event of extramarital affair by their husbands. Thus, 2 sets of lock were there which were accessible to the spouses for keeping a check on the sexuality of their partner. In many cases, the wives received many beeps on their phone indicating their husband's deviant behavior. The husbands could not refuse to wear the digital transmitter, a wafer-thin chip put on the skin by a minor surgery near the genitals, since it would indicate that the husbands were not willing to have a check on their infidelity. As a result of this digital lock or indicators connected to the internet, whole lot of confusion and misunderstanding arouse between the spouses, and some couples even file for divorce. In a combined meeting of husbands and wives of the Ship Association, it was decided by consensus, the trust and love is the best test of fidelity, and no, this Miraj of Virginity test has to be given up. A spouse should tolerate and forgive an occasional deviation under heavy stress of sex starvation, which is a common feature due to the long voyage of their husbands, an engineer's or navigator. There was a restoration of love and trust, and the ship owners were persuaded to give brief small cabin to accommodate the young wife on the husband's long voyage. The cost of the cabin was partly shared by the officers and the ship owners.